I'm good here. Good morning. Joe is way too kind. I'm going to do this just so if, I don't know, I'll see that. I have drunk the Kool-Aid for 12 years, and I am a Tab believer. And I actually changed what I'm going to say a little bit in the beginning, and that's because what I hope for each of you in this room is that you grab onto the Tab way. Because Jason doesn't know, I didn't know what Jason was going to say, and he didn't know what I'm going to say, but the alignment is incredible. And I just don't think that's by accident, right? So it's a gift to be here. One of the things about the Tab way is that I try to develop and drive through my organization the OFN way. OFN stands for Office Furniture Now. And I actually was not successful. And it's part of why that the Tab way resonates so much with me. Here's what I'm going to do. I want everybody to stand up because you've been sitting way too long, all right? And I want you to turn to one of your peers in this room, and I want you to say, I want you to hold me accountable to engaging in the Tab way. All right, you can sit down now. I'm probably going to drive the camera person nuts. Okay, so here's it. I believe that every business owner deserves the CEO peer group of their choice. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, at the end of the day, it works. It really is an amazing thing, okay? But you do have competition, all right? You got competition. But when I meet a business owner, I tell them they deserve to be in a CEO peer group of their choice. It's changed my life. So what has Tab done for me? Well, accountability, that's not a surprise, right? It's insight and advice, encouragement, inspiration. I don't know if inspiration was in that word thing, but it is. It's really true. I'm a better business owner. I am finally, after 33 years of being a business owner, what I think is successful because of the inspiration that I got from the fellow members in my groups. Hands down, absolutely. And you know what? It was fun contributing to other people's journeys too, right? These are some of my good friends that I have made through Tab who have delivered on the promise of Tab in my life. So starting out, when I was 13 years old, my first W-2 job was cleaning a parking lot for $1.50 an hour. Okay? And I was happy to do it. I was grateful. And that's the parking lot. That job, the journey on that job led to my being able to pay for college. Because my dad, I was the oldest of 5 kids. My dad barely had 2 nickels to rub together most of the time. And so I got a scholarship, but there was a lot that still wasn't covered by the scholarship. And so I paid for college. I worked a little too hard, and I regret that. I worked 3 to 4 nights a week. That job in the parking lot, I got to be a food prep kid, and then I got to be an assistant cook, and then I got to be a cook. And in this restaurant right there, I cooked dinner for 1,000 people on Mother's Day. I did it twice. That was painful. But I did get to experience in that organization. And most of you have probably eaten in one of these. It's a little different today, the Chart House restaurant, but I got to experience culture. It was amazing. I mean, everybody who went to work there wanted to be there. They wanted to work there. Every member of my family has worked for that organization. I've lost count of the number of friends who I brought into that organization, and the number of siblings of theirs that they brought in the organization. That's culture, right? And so what I would challenge you to, to ask yourself, are your tab members bringing other tab members into your groups or into other groups in your vicinity because you're too full and you can't help them? I think that's a great question to ask yourself quarterly. Go, are my tab members actually recruiting for me? I did get recruited to tab by a tab member in my group. It took 4 years. God, I wish he would have been more successful sooner. I do. Okay, so, here's a question. I'm going to run you through a series of what if I had been in tab then? Okay? So, in my junior year of college, I got offered an opportunity by that same restaurant to go open a restaurant that was 45 miles away. Well, I had my own car, and so I'm like, okay. And they said, you know what? You get to be the senior head waiter, which means you get to pick the nights you want to work, right? Hands down. That was a lot of money. That meant a lot of money. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll do that. So I commuted 3 to 4 times a week. I'm going to college full time. I'm in a collegiate sport, and I'm working 30 hours a week. What would my tab group have told me? Have you really examined the trade-offs in this deal? My friends, they were interning for Wall Street firms. They were getting exposed to new careers and possibilities. Now, I don't regret my journey, right? But it might have been interesting to be exposed to different things at a time when that's kind of really what I was supposed to be doing. And I think that that's what a tab group would have done for me. So I've been a small business owner since 1978, okay? This is my first business. This is a calendar, all right? So I had an idea one day for a calendar, and that happened because I rode crew. I was in love with photography, so I took a lot of crew photographs. And they didn't have something called the internet back then. And so you didn't know, the oarsmen didn't know what all the races were. And there was no single place that you could get that information. So I'm like, gosh, why don't I put that all together and make a calendar? Right? So I didn't have a tab group, so what did I do? I had an idea, I took it to market. Right away. Boom, let's go. I had the money, I could self-finance it, right? And so I'm in college, and as far as I'm concerned, all the people who rode crew are in college. And so the events are, the first event's in September and the last one's in June. So I guess let's do the calendar from August to July. Right? Sounds like a fit. Josh, what would Tab might have done for me then? They might have said, Bill, when do people buy calendars? Right? Okay. How do they buy them? Where do they buy them? How much money do you make selling to the retailers that sell them? Have you actually sketched out the financial aspects of this thing? Have you monetized your time? Have you put it in, what is the opportunity cost to you, of investing in this? Well, the good thing was I didn't do any of that, and so I got to experience failure, okay, and success simultaneously, right? Because I took an idea to market. I did all the work. I recruited a friend to help me. We went to some places, hawking that calendar that, weren't in my plan to go, and so I got to experience that. I got to experience being turned down as a sales guy, to retailers over and over and over again. And I lost a few $1,000s. The good news, and that was a lot of money back then, maybe half a car, The good news was, I had a pretty good bank account because I was working all those hours in a restaurant. So, I didn't have to start over. I just got to go to the next thing. Okay, so I'm still a small business owner in training. What's the next thing? Well, one of the crew events I went to, it was a major regatta in Princeton, New Jersey, and we get there and we're walking in, and I walk by this pickup truck. Now, there's not a lot of pickup trucks in New Jersey, I think, but it's not like Texas. Anyway, there are 4 kids. They are handing T-shirts out the back of their shirt as fast as they can. And on the other side are kids handing him $10 bills. $10 bill t-shirt, $10 bill t-shirt, right? Like, God, that's interesting. I've never seen that before. How does that work? So about a year later, somebody tells me about this New England rowing championships for high schools that happens in Worcester, Massachusetts, which is kind of out in the country if you go to school in Boston. And I'm like, wow, I wonder if they have t-shirts. Okay? So I made a phone call. I tracked down the people that ran the regatta and I said, no, we don't have t-shirts. You want to bring some? They said, yeah, I'd love to bring some. Okay? Yeah, okay, yeah. So it's called the Schoolboys. Okay, so here it is. That's the first design, 1979. That's not the print. That's the artwork. And so I get there, and you know what? Half the competitors are girls. Strange. Why would they call it the Schoolboys? Wow. If I'd been in tab then, do you think that I might have been encouraged to find a little bit more about this before I printed up 500 t-shirts? The good news is we sold 350 of them, and so it was a financial success. We had some extra shirts to give away, and we had some very unhappy potential customers. Very unhappy potential customers. Okay? So if I'd been in tab then, I probably would have done something like this, and I would have called it the New England Interscholastic Championships. But I learned from my mistakes that first year, so I incorporated that into the next year and went back. And we sold all the t-shirts that year. And what's fun about this is that if it's worth it, you keep doing it. Sometimes even for 38 years in a row. Because that's the one we did last May. And, yeah, thanks. And I don't do that one for the money anymore, although I will tell you, 4 years ago in the recession, the money I made in that was really important. But now, now I do it because every family member of mine has participated. I have nieces and nephews and brothers and sisters and uncles and aunts who have participated. So it's that culture. This is a culture in my family. I mean, when we get extended family together, they start talking about, oh yeah, have you helped Billy on that deal? Okay. It's fun. All right, so I'm still a small business owner in training. It's 1983, and my wife and I decided to move to Austin, Texas, for her to go to law school, and we have a little money in the bank that we've saved, and it's time for me to start a real business, one with employees, okay? And so I know that people spend money on t-shirts. I actually have learned how to screen print. And I have about $20,000 saved up, and I've learned that it takes about $10,000 to get in the business of screen printing. All right, let's go into the screen printing business. Right? Why not? That's the first idea. It's got to be the best idea. Right? So what if I'd had a tab group back then? Yeah, who knows? Who knows? But, so I got to experience for 9 years, I got my street MBA, right? I got to learn how to hire and how to fire. I went through a recession. We built this company up to 34 employees, and then the recession in the late 80s, we took it down to 19. Back about a couple of years in, we were completely out of money, and I brought in my father-in-law as a 50% partner. And my father-in-law had recently retired from a business where he was in charge of 5,000 people. And he came to work for me, in a company with 25 people. And it was a great experience, and he was a tremendous gentleman about it. And so we spent a couple of years together, and then we decided, family is way more important than this business. And so I bought him back out. It was a piece of paper. He didn't get money. He got a piece of paper. And I'm actually finally delivering on that piece of paper now when he needs the money most. So that's worked out pretty well. But I got to learn everything. And one of the big lessons I got was I had gotten the non-competes done for my sales force. And my sales force, we had become really successful in one niche, which is serving college sororities and fraternities, and we had really figured out how to do that. And that profitability kind of carried my business, through the rest of the year. Well, these three gentlemen decided that those customers could be their customers. And I had left those non-competes in my drawer because I was too afraid to make them sign them, right? And I had taught them everything they knew about that business. I had developed the business model over years. And, if I had been in a tab group back then, I'm confident those would have been executed non-competes. And instead of that business that they still have today, maybe I'd have it. I don't know. But, it did serve me well. Those lessons were tremendous. They really were. I wouldn't take them back. So I'm still a small business owner in training. Those guys steal my most profitable customers, and I do mean steal. I think it's an accurate statement. And we're like, really? Okay, so I just don't have it in me. I've done this for 9 years. I just don't have it in me. So we decide, okay, I'm gonna get out of this, and so there's kind of three distinct businesses, one of which these guys took, and then two others, and one of my wife had developed and ran, and that's her company, the True Blue, and so we spun that off, and then I kind of helped her a little bit on the side, but it was those decisions about, what do you do when when you need to wind something down? How do you get through that? And the third piece I gave to an ex-employee for a percentage of profits. I did never get a check from him. But what if I'd had a tab group? Would the outcome have been easier? Would I have fast forwarded through some of those things that kind of drug on for a while? I'm still a small business owner in training. Let's go build another startup. So I'm in search. This is Austin, Texas, 1990, and high tech is everything, and it's been the big businesses but now some little ones are finally starting to get into it. And so I run into a couple engineers. They have just invented this product, the Tokamak accelerator. It was made for Macintosh computers. And they need a sales guy. And I need a new mission. So I jump on board with them. And about 3 months later, they realize not only do they need a sales guy, they need a CEO. They need somebody to run this business. So I do it. And we have a great time for a couple of years, build it up to 15 employees. Not a lot, but we establish international distribution around the world. But it turns out the co-founder goes into a really deep depression. And he just stops coming to work. And I'm out there trying to raise money to develop the next product for us to continue to be in business. And he just won't show up. So what if I'd had a tab group back then? Maybe my tab members would have helped me develop, a strategy and ways to help that difficult, that partner through, so we didn't kill the business. Because it did kill the business. It just died. And so if I'd had tab group then, I'm sure that the outcome would have been different. I'm going to skip that one for now. Okay, do we see a pattern here? Right? Left to our own devices, small business owners can be too opportunistic for our own good. It doesn't mean we don't necessarily learn along the way, but boy, the learning could be a lot more efficient with the help of tab members and a facilitator like yourselves, right? Whether it's opportunistic or stubborn or creative or blind or whatever it is, right? We just a lot of that. Okay, all right, here it is, take 6. Joe, you were wrong. It wasn't 5, it was 6, okay? And it's actually 7, but now, this was 6. So 3 with employees. With a friend of mine who I'd known for about 15 years at that point, would move back to Austin to build a business. He had the experience in that business. He had done a similar business for 10 years. So he knew what he wanted to do. He wanted a partner to do it with. I needed a company to build or be in, and I needed a partner to do it because I didn't have any money. I was broke. So this guy was a great partner, the epitome of a great partner. We all, hope to get one of those one day. On a handshake deal, I was a 50% partner in the business on sweat equity. His money, my sweat, and his sweat too, right? And so we built this company up, survived through the dot-com bust, got to the other side of that, and he was ready to retire. So I bought him out. I still didn't have a Tab group, but I bought him out and I joined Tab. All right? One of the absolute best decisions I ever made. Hands down, no question about it. And I would tell any business owner, I tell every business owner I meet that. Am I coachable? I don't know. We'll see, right? We'll see. I bought my partner out. He only charged me that 50% of what the value was worth. And I borrowed the money from a bank who was, nice enough to do it. And so that adventure began. I changed the name because, it had been one of those things. Between partners, nothing's perfect. I did not like the name of the company. So I changed the name. And there are people today in Austin, Texas who will come up to me and go, whatever happened to Bee Cave Contract? It went away. It became Office Furniture Now. Okay, so what is, I try to think about what is the most distinctively valuable things Tab has done for me. Well, it holds me accountable, right? I was sitting in a meeting in 2005. I'd only been in the group about a year and a half, okay? And I'm talking about leasing more space because we were in a business that consumed a lot of warehouse space. So when we first went into the business, we had 6,000 square feet. In 2005, we had 90,000 square feet. Okay, that's a big bill. We were tenants. We didn't own the building. But in previous meetings, I had been saying the next time I need more space, I'm going to buy the building. And so I'm sitting in this meeting, I'm talking about, I'm negotiating the lease for more space in the meeting, with the owner of that building. And the group goes, Bill, wait. You said you were going to buy it the next time. You know what? So I took a step back, and it took a lot more work and effort to do it, but I bought the building. And this is it. This is the aerial view. It's Class C, built in 1955, which in Austin, Texas is ancient, okay? Ancient. And it's ugly, but it works. It works. And when we bought it, my wife and I knew, this is our retirement fund. We knew it. We may never get to retire off the office furniture business, but the real estate it's just the best thing we could have ever done. Okay, so 2007 rolls along, and I don't know about many of you, but the recession hit us in October of 2007. Sales dropped off 50%. And the good news was, by being in Tab, I'm getting to hear everybody else's story, and I'm realizing, we're at the front end of this. We're the canary in the mine shaft, because it dropped off 50%. Now, 1 month, that's okay, but I had done the work to figure out 3 months in a row, that's reality for us in our business, because we're cyclical. So by December, I have laid off half of the company. Half of the company. And the following April, I laid off like 25% more. And no, none of us wants to have to do that, but I had to be responsible to the whole entity. Right? Save the thing for everybody else. And so we had a bunch of changes to do through that recession. How do you get through this thing? And nobody knew it was going to be so long, right? So we implemented a motto: change now, no matter what. No matter what. These are the things we have to do, right? So for you guys, if you're not in a peer group, you're not drinking the Kool-Aid. You have got to be in a peer group. No matter what. All right, so next big thing was, I had been dreaming for 10 years of doing a national roll-up of businesses like ours. because ours is a type of business that's very hard to sell because most of the owners are in the business and the business won't work without them. But if you can figure out how to make that business work without you, I think you could roll up dozens of us around the country. So that was my dream. And the easiest thing to do was to buy my direct competitor in Austin, Texas, who had become a good friend by that point. Now that's really strange, right? Biggest competitor, good friend. But this guy taught me a lot. He taught me how to share. It just was really awesome. And so I'd been working with him for 3 years to acquire his business. I'd gotten the bank to say, sure, we'll finance it. So I'm all lined up and ready to go. And guess what my tab group does? They say, Bill, no, you can't do that. Because if you do, if it works, great. But if you stumble, and most acquisitions, putting two companies together, they actually stumble for quite a while. If you stumble too much, you could lose everything. Everything. And at that point, I guess I'm 14 years in with this business. I didn't want to start over. And so I had to call my good friend up and say, you know what? I'm not going to do it. And I had to shut down that dream of this national roll-up. But gosh, it was the right thing to do. And I knew it. I just knew it. But I needed my members, my group, to drive that home. Okay, so 2014 comes along. We're profitable again. I don't want to be the guy running the day-to-day. That was another piece of my dream from day one, right? 17 years earlier, I don't want to be the guy running day-to-day. So Tab was instrumental in my hiring a COO. Joe was a guest in one of our meetings, and he's sitting there in the meeting, and then afterwards he goes, I have a guy I think you need to talk to. And so he brought this part-time consultant in, and that consultant, I engaged him to help me hire this COO. We did a national search. We didn't use a search, deal. It was a great collaborative effort. My panel interviews for the top 2 candidates were conducted with me, that consultant, and 3 of my tab members. Right? And this was a half a day out of their lives, right? But that's how valuable we become to each other, right? And so, and of course, as soon as I hired this guy, I've got him in another tab group. Why would I not? So, about a year ago, my tab group is going, Bill, it's time. It's time for you to sell, right? Time for you to sell. And I'm like, no, I'm not done yet. That national roll-up, I still want to do that. I still want to buy my friend, But I've waited, and I'll continue to wait until I can do it and not risk the whole thing. And they wouldn't give up, right? I was being stubborn about I wasn't done yet. I had more to give, more to do. And they just persisted. And so one day, the consultant calls me. They used him too, right? So they had him call me, and I'm headed on vacation, and I say, okay, I'll tell you what. For this vacation, I will pretend that I've sold the business. So I get back from that, and I'm like, God, that felt really good. I think it's time. And the natural candidate was the COO, right? It was a natural candidate. So it took us about 9 months to negotiate the deal, do a letter of intent, for him to get the financing, and on April 7th, he became the owner of the business, and I could not be happier about that. It was just awesome. So, what has Tab done for me? My life would not be the same. It just, it gives me goosebumps to think about it. So, I think back to because the guy in the upper left-hand corner, he was the guy in 1999 who said, Bill, you got to come into Tab. This is great. And it took me 4 years to say yes. And he just left our group recently because he sold his business and really downsized and was really trying to do just part-time stuff. And he hung in Tab for a while, and then it was time to go. But he was the guy who called the consultant and said, call Bill and tell him. Keep telling him, okay, right? And I could tell you stories about each one of those people, and there's a couple that they don't have images on the internet, so I couldn't put them in there, and I feel bad about that. Okay, so, you know, some advice that I would give you is when you're recruiting, you know, lean on your tab members. They are infinitely valuable to you, and if you've done the right job with them and they believe in it like I believe in it, then they're gonna help you. They'll show up at a breakfast or a lunch or a coffee, or they'll do it in their business, you know, whatever. They will do it, okay? Because they want more tab members out there, all right? And so again, I just can't tell you enough. I believe every business owner deserves the CEO group of their choice, peer group of their choice. And I hope for you that it's tab. I really do. Thanks for letting me be here.